Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter and paramedic line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events and potentially prevent them from happening in the future. I'm your host, Paul, and today I'm joined by the whole crew. We have Doug and Dirk and Zach all joining us, so it doesn't happen very often, so it should be a lively discussion. Hey, Zach, how are you today?
Hey Paul, I'm good. Keeping pretty busy. We just did a fire prevention tour at the fire station here, and got Oakley, my dog, there performing for the kids. So it was a good day. He did his first live performance and actually did really well today, teaching kids stop, drop, and roll. So
Awesome.
yeah, it was a good day.
Oakley the Dalmatian, right?
You betcha. Yeah.
Stop, drop,
So
and roll, and you say he
stop.
feels the door too.
Yeah, he'll
See
go
if
and feel
it's
the
hot,
door, and he'll
then he
crawl.
crawl
Yeah,
low.
and then he tests the smoke detector.
Oh yeah, how to test
Yeah,
a smoke detector. Right on.
absolutely.
That's
Yeah.
cool.
So easy the dog can do it. So
There you go. I like it.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
awesome. That's
it was
awesome.
good.
Yeah, and you're off for a few days.
I'm off for a few days. Yeah,
Regular
well,
job.
off. I'm studying for my exam and my interview here coming up in the next 2 days. So be a busy couple of days, and then back off to work next Wednesday. So
Right on. Right on.
yeah,
That's great. Exciting.
yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a captain's promotion maybe, right? In your
yeah,
part-time department.
maybe. Yeah,
Yeah.
you betcha. Possibly. So we'll see. Just
Cool.
gotta do
Cool.
well.
And Doug, how are you doing today?
Oh, hey guys, I'm doing fine. Just happy back doing this again. I'm on vacation from work, but picked up a bunch of shifts, so I'm worked yesterday day, working tonight down in Dirk's neck of the woods, and yeah, just living the dream with two kids and a wife and a dog, and working, and yeah, it's busy.
Yeah,
Spent some
right on.
time with the in-laws, which was okay, but
What the hell did I get myself into? He says.
yeah, oh yeah. Well, I dealt with you, so dealing with them's easy.
That's right. That's right. Good, good. And Dirk, how are you doing? Are you on
I
vacation?
felt really safe when Dougie was working in my neighborhood.
Uh,
Well, that's tonight. That's tonight.
Oh, that's night. I'm
Yeah,
gonna feel especially safe.
I get to
light a
see the
Other
new
than
fire.
that,
jacket.
I'm on vacation as well. Kind of look like Paul here with a beard, so I love it. Gotta do some mask testing. That'd be interesting, hey?
Yep,
The
do your
old,
fit test. Yep.
the old firefighter myth. The beard doesn't give you a good seal, kind of.
Hmm. Hmm.
Other than that, it's all good.
It's just a
Looking
good
forward
thing
to
we're a
it.
podcast and not a YouTube show because some people listen to us, but nobody would watch us.
That's right. For sure. For sure. Yeah, and myself, well, I've been busy teaching ICS, doing an ICS 300 course this week, and taught one a couple of weeks ago as well, and doing my emergency management courses. That's wrapping up here for the year. I had all my students yesterday doing 4 different case studies, which was interesting. They did the Christchurch earthquakes about response and recovery. They did the Las Vegas shooting, which was interesting. I listened to actually a emergency manager who was at the Las Vegas shooting on the Strip last week on a webinar, which was interesting. And then they also did the BP Horizon oil spill and the Calgary floods. So that was an interesting evening last night. Keeping up my with my students and their case studies and stuff. This week's incident on November 25th, 2002, a 46-year-old male career lieutenant and a 30-year-old male volunteer firefighter and a 33-year-old male volunteer firefighter died when the roof collapsed at an auto parts store. This combination department comprised of 19 career firefighters and 25 volunteer firefighters, serving a population of approximately 16,000 people in a geographical area of about 10 square miles. This is actually Coos Bay, Oregon. I've been to Coos Bay many times. One of my favorite areas is the Oregon coast, and this one sort of touched my heart, and that's why I wanted to do this episode, because it could happen in almost anywhere, any town in North America. So, the training and experience of the firefighters was that victim number 1 was a career lieutenant, and had 14 years of experience in the service with his combination department, and a total of 23 years experience as a firefighter. He was certified 10 FPA level 1 and 2 driver operator, as well as a fire service instructor. He also had tactical operations for company officers 1 and 2, and firefighting tactics and strategy, building construction, and firefighter safety and survival. Victim number 2 was a volunteer firefighter who had approximately 3 years experience with this combination fire department and a total of 10 years experience as a firefighter. He was certified firefighter 1 and 2, driver operator, and fire service instructor. Victim number 3 was a volunteer firefighter who had approximately 8 years of experience with this combination fire department and a total of 15 years experience as a firefighter, certified firefighter 1 and 2, and driver operator. The initial response to the alarm was engine 8132, which included victim 1, victim 2, and victim 3, firefighter 4 and firefighter 5, which was a driver operator, and an aerial operator. It was a quint, I guess. Engine 8131, driver operator, 2 firefighters, rescue 8171, driver and firefighter, ladder 8151, which was a firefighter, 2 firefighters, and a driver operator. Staff chief and a command on duty battalion chief. There was also a mutual aid response, consisted of an engine, a ladder, and 3 chief officers, or 2 chief officers and 3 firefighters in a staff vehicle. Additional personnel from both departments also arrived on scene in their personal owned vehicles. The structure was built at approximately 1938 and was type 4 heavy timber construction. The building had numerous modifications, which included the addition of a warehouse and a mezzanine. This was a non-sprinklered building encompassing approximately 13,000 square feet of floor space. The ceiling was 8-inch wide, 3/4 inch old growth fir shiplap with a 3/8 fir tex glued to the surface. The ceiling was attached to 2x10 wood ceiling joists. The height of the ceiling in the sales area was approximately 14 feet at and the mezzanine underneath part of it was 7 feet tall. The roof was constructed of the same material in the same manner as the ceiling, supported by 2x13-inch wood rafters and 9x9-inch wood posts supporting the 9x13 wooden beams. So heavy timber construction. On November 25th of 2002, at approximately 13:20 hours just after lunch, the occupants of the auto parts store returned from lunch and discovered a light haze in the air and could smell something burning. The occupants searched the store but could not find the source of the haze or smell. One of the occupants went outside, and on the north side of the building, the Bravo side, put a ladder up to the roof. He went to the roof but was unable to find anything. After exiting the roof, he met the occupant from the attached automotive machine shop. They discussed the haze and smell of something burning. Together they returned to the roof, where they found the chimney to be hot to the touch. They exited the roof, they entered the auto parts store, they noticed a red glow in the bathroom area of the mezzanine upstairs. The red glow was caused by fire above the ceiling and behind the wall. They attempted to extinguish the red glow with a portable fire extinguisher. Their attempts to extinguish the red glow were unsuccessful, so the occupants called 911 finally at 13:51 hours, so 31 minutes later. Units were dispatched to the auto parts store with the reports of fire in the ceiling in the bathroom. Initial response was ladder 8151, engine 8132, rescue 8171, engine 8131, staff 8101, and command 8111. Command battalion chief arrived on scene, assumed command, initial incident commander, and reported nothing showing. Central dispatch. The property owner approached the initial commander and informed him that the fire was near the chimney in the bathroom on the mezzanine and that all the occupants had exited the building. The incident commander could see a light haze of smoke at the drop ceiling level. Ladder 8151 arrived on scene and the IC informed the firefighters as to the location of the fire. At 13:56, the chief of the department arrived on scene. The initial IC transferred command to the chief. Brown smoke was now visible to units, visible near the chimney with no visible fire. Command then radioed responding units to advise them that we had a working fire in a commercial structure. The property owner, standing near the alpha side door with command, pointed toward the mezzanine and said the fire was in the bathroom on the mezzanine. Firefighter 1, Firefighter 2 from ladder 8151 advanced an 1 3/4 hands line 200-foot pre-connect through the front door. 2 firefighters advanced the line towards the north end of the sales counter. They saw the fire at the ceiling level, approximately 20 to 25 feet from the front wall in the northwest corner of the building. It is believed that the fire was coming from a scuttle or vent in that space. The crew then applied water and knocked the fire down. The 2 firefighters repositioned the line to the center of the sales counter, so that's on the main floor still, before proceeding down the center aisle leading to the stairs up the mezzanine. The 2 firefighters could hear crackling as they reached the stairs. The battalion chief, the initial IC, assisted establishing water supply to the ladder. He was ordered by IC to do a walk around of the building as part of the size up of the incident. The IC requested mutual aid units from dispatch. Engine 8132 arrived on scene, so second engine in. Firefighters from the engine pulled another 1 3/4 line to back up the line off of the ladder. Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2 advanced the attack line to the top of the stairs and into the mezzanine. They advanced to the back wall of the mezzanine, where they saw to their left a fully involved bathroom on the Bravo side of the building. The 2 firefighters reported to NIOSH investigators after the fire at this point that they encountered a light haze of smoke, very little heat on the mezzanine. They began their attack on the bathroom area and knocked the fire down. They opened up the ceiling near the bathroom and found active fire in the rafters, which they quickly knocked down. 3 more firefighters, victim 3, firefighter 3, and firefighter 4, advanced 2 house lines from the ladder to the counter and continued with 1 hand line up the mezzanine. Firefighters reported to investigators that the lights of the building were still on and there was a brownish gray colored smoke at what they believed to be the ceiling level. The actual ceiling height was deceiving because of the drop ceiling and suspended lights above the sales counter and shelving, but not above the rest of the building. And just a point here that I made as a note, large commercial buildings can be very deceiving with heat and smoke, not seeming to be heavy, but yet can be extreme fire going over your heads and you can't see it. The Charleston Super Sofa fire, of course, was an example of that, and there's many others. They encountered heavy smoke conditions, but no visible fire upon reaching the top of the mezzanine. They met up with the 2 firefighters from the initial attack line and assisted them with pulling ceiling material. They began pulling wall material and attacking the fire between the rafters of the automotive machine shop. Firefighter 5 and victim number 2 entered the front of the building, followed the hand lines to the mezzanine. Victim 1 entered the building and proceeded to the mezzanine. In an attempt to clear smoke from the mezzanine, Firefighter 5 searched for windows to open along the back wall and the office. There were now 8 firefighters, victims 1 and 3, firefighters 1 and 5, operating with 2 hand lines along the back wall of the mezzanine. Victim number 1 radioed command, requesting roof ventilation and positive pressure ventilation fan to be set up on the alpha side of the building. At about 14:08 hours, mutual aid units began arriving on scene. Engine 3806 was ordered to the rear to protect the exposures. 5 firefighters from engine 8306 were assigned by the IC to the roof to perform vertical ventilation. The chief of one of the mutual aid departments then became Division C, and another chief from the mutual aid department became incident safety officer. The engine 8131 arrived on scene. 5 firefighters from the mutual aid engine 8306 and a firefighter from 8131 were now on the roof, accessed via ladder 8151, that was that first ladder on scene. The Quint radioed command that they were ready to begin ventilating the roof. A small flame could be seen near the chimney on the A side of the building. This was determined by the state fire marshal to be the point of origin. Firefighters on the Charlie side were now pulling hand lines off of 8306 engine and advancing them into the automotive machine shop from the Charlie side. Charlie command officer entered the shipping and receiving area and proceeded to a man door that led to the auto parts store, which was on the Bravo side of the automotive machine shop. The store was located directly below the mezzanine. He opened the door and heard crews operating on the mezzanine above him. Crews on the Charlie side were now in the automotive machine shop, which was the Delta side, attacking the fire near the point of origin. There was little or no fire damage in the automotive machine shop and shipping and receiving areas portions of the building. As the interior attack crews continued pulling wall and ceiling material on the mezzanine, they experienced a momentary loss of water pressure. There were delays in establishing a water supply to ladder 8151 as personnel were having difficulty with the couplings. Ladder 8151 only had a 375-gallon tank. It was a quint that was initially utilized until they were successful in hooking up to a hydrant. Firefighters 1 and 2 and 4 were now low on air, proceeded to exit. Firefighter number 3 radioed command and requested additional manpower. Firefighter number 4 passed the nozzle to victim 3, who was still working near the bathroom. As firefighter 4 was exiting, he ran into victim 1 near the corner at the back room, where he was providing details of what they'd encountered and accomplished. Visibility was now reduced to 0, but the heat was relatively mild. As the 3 firefighters, that's a bad sign when the visibility is 0 and the heat's mild. Where's the heat? As the firefighters proceeded towards the top of the stairs, they passed 2 more firefighters believed to be victim 2 and firefighter 5. At this time, 5 firefighters were operating on the mezzanine. They were victim 1, victim 2, victim 3, firefighter 3, and firefighter 5. Victim 1 and Victim 3 each had a nozzle, and they were hitting the fire between the rafters of the automotive machine shop, while Victim 1 was working with Victim 3 near the bathroom, and Firefighter 3 was working with Victim 2 along the back wall of the mezzanine, continuing to pull ceiling and wall materials. As 3 firefighters followed the hand line down the stairs, they heard the skylights of the roof being broken out. 4 firefighters on the roof were breaking out the skylights. 2 other firefighters began cutting a 6 by 8 foot hole to the east, approximately 15 feet from the chimney, which was the point of origin. Initially, no smoke was coming from the first skylight, and then it began emitting heavy dark gray smoke. Crews proceeded to break out the second skylight, where heavy smoke began billowing out. Firefighters 1, 2, and 4 exited the building, approached command to inform him whether they had completed and the location of the fire. Command passed command back to the battalion chief, who was the initial IC, so that he could go and look at the roof to check on the roof operations. The crew on the roof requested a hand line. The senior firefighter in charge of the ventilation crew noticed that the roof began to feel spongy and told his crew that the roof was getting weak. The senior firefighter in charge of the ventilation ordered the crew off the roof. After the chief reached the roof, he could see tar bubbling and smoke coming along the wall near the Alpha Bravo corner and heavy smoke pushing out of the skylights. He also noticed that the roof felt really soft and spongy near the Alpha side wall, so at the front of the building. Firefighter number 3 was now low on air, proceeded to leave the mezzanine. Firefighter number 5 passed his flashlight to victim 2 when his low air alarm began sounding. He followed the hose line to the top of the stairs. As he reached the top of the stairs, he was knocked to the bottom of the stairs by falling debris. Firefighter 3 was near the bottom of the stairs and was knocked to the floor. Note, it's believed that victim 3 was directly behind firefighter 5 at the top of the stairs when the ceiling collapsed. Victim 1 and Victim 2 were behind Victim 3. As firefighter 5 was knocked to the bottom of the stairs, Victim 3 was either partially trapped at the top of the stairs or was knocked over the railing. Victim 1 and 2 received full force of the ceiling collapse and were covered in debris near the corner of the break room on the mezzanine. Firefighter 3 was out of air and forced to exit the building. As Firefighter 5 regained his bearings, he could see the mezzanine area was now fully involved in fire. He yelled for the other firefighters on the mezzanine, did not receive a response. Just gives you chills just reading it. In an attempt to get their attention, he began pulling on the hose line, but did not get a response. He then was running out of air and was forced to exit the building. As the ventilation crew was exiting the roof, the chief ordered an evacuation of the building. Command 8111, who was still acting as the IC, the battalion chief, the initial IC, radioed for crews to evacuate the building. Drivers and firefighters began blowing air horns on the apparatus on the Alpha side of the building. The department's evacuation procedure is for announcement over the radio and the IC and apparatus air horns to be blown. Dispatch does not use evacuation tones or notice. The chief was the last to leave the roof. He was climbing on the ladder. He could see one of the skylights drop into the building. A deep red flame and heavy smoke began blowing out of the hole. Firefighter 5 now exited the building. He ran into the incident safety officer and told him to radio the firefighters that were still inside. The ISO, along with other officers and firefighters, attempted to radio the 3 firefighters inside. They did not receive any response. As the chief got off the ladder descending from the roof, he heard firefighter 5 report that there was firefighters still in the building and that there was some kind of an explosion. The chief, that was now acting as IC again, ordered ventilation crew to become a rapid intervention team. Additional hand lines were pulled for various apparatus to progress the egress on the Alpha side of the building. Division Charlie Command began proceeding through the automotive repair shop to the man door below the mezzanine after being informed of the missing firefighters. He opened the door. He could hear personal alert safety system sounding overhead in the mezzanine. Personal accountability report was conducted. Victim 1 and 2 and victim 3 were noted as missing in the building. The identity of victim 2 was not for sure known until a firefighter reported victim 2's identity to the incident commander, because they may have came from mutual aid companies. Rapid intervention team entered the Alpha side of the building in an attempt to locate the 3 missing firefighters. The fire began to intensify rapidly as the front windows began to break. Fire was now visibly rolling along the ceiling from the back towards the front of the auto parts store. The RIT made 2 separate attempts to enter and search the building before they were forced to exit the building. Approximately 5 minutes later, firefighter 1, operating a 2.5-inch hand line near the front of the building, reported to IC he could hear a pass alert sounding. Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 5, who had changed out his air with a new one, entered the building and approached the sales counter. Firefighter 5 climbed over the counter and found victim number 3. That was the benefits of having guys that were in there. They knew where things were and what the layout was. Victim number 3 was found face down with his face mask on and his protective gear in place. Apparently, he was able to find the hand lines that were leading from the mezzanine stairs to the front of the building. Firefighter number 1 exited and asked crews to assist in retrieving victim 3. Numerous firefighters entered and were able to retrieve victim number 3. He was provided advanced life support measures by Medic 5 crew and transported to area hospital, where he was later pronounced deceased. An additional mutual aid department arrived on scene, and a second attempt was made to enter and search the building for victim 1 and 2. The crews on the Charlie side also attempted to perform a rescue operation but were unsuccessful. A second evacuation was ordered as conditions still remained too dangerous for crews to operate on the interior of the building. Operations went defensive until approximately 2 hours later. Conditions improved for crews to enter and locate victim 1 and 2 on the mezzanine. Crews left 1 and 2 in place for further examination by the fire marshal and the medical examiner. They were pronounced dead about an hour later by the deputy medical examiner. Cause of death was recorded in death certificates for all 3 victims as asphyxiation. So, I mean, to me, that could happen anywhere, right? Every town's got that shop where they fabricate stuff, fix stuff, sell stuff, and they build a mezzanine and they have stuff on top. So the recommendations were, ensure firefighters provide incident commander with interior size up reports. Interior size up just as important as exterior size up. The IC can't really see it. They're outside. The conditions should be communicated as soon as possible. If heavy smoke is emitting from the exterior roof, but firefighters can't find fire in the interior, it's a good possibility that they have a concealed fire in a concealed space somewhere like the roof system. The initial attack crew in this case encountered fire coming from a vent at the ceiling level above the sales counter near the front of the building. The mezzanine and the bathroom were more towards the back, so somehow those were connected, the red glow and yet the fire. The IC was never informed of fire near the front of the building and was only aware of the fire on the mezzanine near the bathroom. Firefighters provided information to the IC about the location of the fire, but what they accomplished after they had exited the structure, so the information was late. Thoughts? We got 4 guys and they're all quiet as church mice.
Well, I think what comes out of this is having those pre-incident pre-planned surveys done, right, for your local businesses if you should have some, right, so you can be aware of things like mezzanines and having stuff like that proves to be vital for your initial actions, right, so you have an idea of what's going on, and that could be a key for it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that there was fire over the sales counter, which was, at least 10, 12 feet ahead of the mezzanine was significant, and command didn't know that, right?
Mhm.
The second recommendation was firefighters should open concealed spaces. So, like we talked about already, um, uh, the when discussion was they may have fire difficulty locating the fire, even though heavy smokes makes it clear that there is a fire. We had one that apartment building. I don't know, Doug, were you at where we found fire in the wall eventually in a bathroom? We went all over the building and there was smoke and there was heat, but we couldn't find fire until I felt the wall in the bathroom was warm. I don't know. Maybe we didn't have a thermal imaging camera yet then, or I didn't have it. And
Yeah,
then I
I think we
remember.
had one. I don't know who had it or whatever, but I remember the
I
call
remember.
where it took us forever to find it, and I mean, it
Yep.
didn't even set the alarm off that fire. We
No,
pulled it.
yeah, we pulled the fire alarm. I
So
think I did.
it was.
But
I think the
we
big thing
broke
here,
in.
like this recommendation says, is in a commercial building with fire or smoke or whatever, you got to open it up and find where it is because there's big void spaces, and like you said earlier, even if it's not in a drop ceiling, it could be at the ceiling, but the ceiling could be 50 feet up, whatever, right? And there's by the time it gets to you, it's cool, clear. You don't even need your SCBA on, but up there's a working fire,
Yeah.
and it can instantly drop, and then you're screwed. And so you just need to be aware that you're not in a typical dwelling or apartment fire, and the building construction is different, which means your tactics have to be different.
Yeah. Two of the apartment fires I went to, the fire was in the plumbing chase.
What happens
Like,
lots, right? Like the thawing,
yeah,
trying to thaw pipes or whatever,
right.
and
Exactly. Yeah. I
it
remember
happened in
when
a
that
city
we.
by us where plumbers did it, and then they went for lunch and it burned in the walls. And by the time the fire department actually got there, the whole building in the walls was on fire. Not a lot of visible fire, and then it like rapidly got worse, and guys were trapped on balconies and calling maydays, and it was yeah. It can if you have to open it up. It's hard because you don't want to feel like you're causing damage that doesn't need to be caused. So if you go and open up the wall every whatever feet, I mean nowadays having ticks and stuff like that helps because you can look at a wall and see if it's hot before you open it up. But I mean
I remember
they
that
they
that
knew there was a fire there somewhere, so it's not like they were just there for an alarms call on recon. Like the property owner said there was a fire. I mean
yeah,
the pun that like moths to a flame, right? And you get
yeah.
fire behind you or whatever. But I think the big thing about this incident is you just have to remember that these different commercial buildings, which are, I mean, we can all go to a house. All of our areas, there's like 5 different house types, right? It's this house or it's that house or it's this. But these commercial industrial buildings are like completely customized for what the business in there is or was at one time. And it's not just a bread and butter type call where you just need to be cognizant of that and like have your eyes open and know that this isn't just the same as the last one.
So not stretching a 2.5 inch and 3/4, or
Yeah,
opening up the roof and give it air, because at that point it was still ventilation limited, right? So
the fire load.
again, I'm not blaming this department because we all done
We all
that.
do it.
We all still do it, and what kind of gets me is like there are other tools out there. They are more modern, right? If I confirm that there is a fire in that void space, get I don't know, like open up as Doug said and get water in it, spray it, like use a white fog. What do they call those fog nails, or the North American equivalent to that? That'd be stuff we should be carrying instead of wasting time ventilating, making things worse. Maybe just drill a little hole, or smash it in there, get that piercing nozzle in there, and just give it water. Like,
Or
what's the worst thing that
seeing
can happen? We know it's
seeing.
already, if it's dark brown, the structure's already involved. So we know
Yeah,
the
yeah.
rafters are burning, right? And the only chance we have to control this is with water, not with ventilation.
I think the trick is it's not the amount of fire you see that dictates a bigger line. It's the occupancy type. It's a big building. It's a commercial building with lots of potential fire load. Right away, that tells you it's not an 1.75 inch building. It's maybe a 2.5 inch building. Of course, this being 2002, it's before a lot of the more current, NISC studies and scientific experiments that they've done that say, you know, ventilating it is going to make your fire bigger. If you do, you need to be ready to put it out. I see similarities with this and Charleston in that the fire in the ceiling space, small lines, front and back crews, maybe not coordinated. There's some similarities
In
there.
case I sound like Doug, but the FDNY has been pulling 2.5 on commercial structures for 100 years. And everybody's like, this is stupid. We don't have the manpower, yada, yada, yada. But at least you could try to get some more water in there. It's not about the bigger line, it's about the higher flow. And
Right.
there's alternatives nowadays too, right?
And I was just gonna say, I think McCormick's got an actual. Once again, we all like our acronyms here, but I found one that was really. He said it was salad every time, right? Standpipes, large areas, right? Apartments, advanced fire, and defensive operations. That's when you can use the 2.5. So it's not just based on, hey, it's a big fire, like Paul was saying earlier, a big structure, standpipes,
Right.
stuff like that. That should be your click. Oh, hey, this is a big commercial structure. We should probably pull the 2.5.
That was the adults acronym from I think Fredericks, right? Andy Fredericks.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The other thing
Yeah.
about this fire is there was a big delay in the fire department being notified, right? Like I just scrolled back in the script there, and
Yep.
at 1:20 the occupants came back from lunch. So how long were they gone for? And and then they did their own investigation, and then half an hour later they called 911. So
Yeah.
this thing could have been burning for an hour before anybody even noticed it. And you're showing up not knowing any of that, thinking like, oh, they just saw fire and we called in, whatever. And you go in there and you're an hour into the operation, not knowing it, that fire has grown and grown and grown and found spaces and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah. And
it's
that ceiling has.
you're behind the eight ball to start with. I mean,
I
you're
used to
never going to
go-
know that really. That like, unless somebody says like, oh, we came back from lunch an hour ago and found it, but you're going to get toned out and respond and think it's just a usual, like, someone just found a fire and called us. So it's tough when you don't even know that you're that far behind the eight ball.
I think the big thing there is, yeah, okay, at lunch, whatever, they didn't mention that, but they've tried to fight it and discover it for 20 or 30 minutes.
Yeah.
That's the real problem. I remember teaching, doing fire prevention, like, Zach, you were doing with a school, which is different. But when I was doing fire inspections or working with our local industry, when I was in the service, I said, like, don't hesitate to call. You're not sure, there might be a fire. Don't try to put it out yourself and then call. Call us first. I called it treating it with diesel. It's just diesel. It's just the cost of us coming to you. I had a couple of places in Clearwater that the plants were fairly remote from the community, from the fire station. So we've got a bit of drive time. And it's part-time firefighters, so they're coming from work. So you've got a 5 to 10 minute delay before they leave the station, and then they got a 20 or 30 minute drive. So don't hesitate. You'll have lots of time to play fireman and try to put the fire out, which is great, awesome. I hope your people are trained and you've got the equipment. And if you want to phone us and say, "Hey guys, we got it out," then we'll downgrade our response and send one truck to mop up. But
It's
that's
it's no
exactly what
different
they
than
did.
we talk about ourselves calling mutual aid or calling a second alarm. Call it early, and then when you don't need them, you go, okay, thanks for coming, see you later, see you at the next one, right? Well, if you do need them, now they're 5 minutes. They're there 5 minutes faster, right? Especially on these departments where your mutual aid is well, either your second alarm or whatever is volunteers coming from home on your own department, or your mutual aid department is volunteers coming from home, or they're like where you guys live, they're 20 minutes of driving down the road. Never mind the home to fire hall time also,
Right.
right? So it's yeah,
Yeah.
calling
I
people
remember
early is super important. It's always easier to say, "Never mind, go home, thanks," than "Hurry up, hurry up, hurry up. We needed you 5 minutes ago," right?
Yeah, and for our firefighters to keep in their minds that, was there a delay in in calling us? We have to think of that. When you're seeing some stuff that doesn't quite add up, question yourself. Am I here, behind the bus, and I don't know what's going on? That may change the incident. And Zach, I was just looking in the recommendations here, and it says, uh, the inspections had been done, but no pre-emergency plan had ever been done of the building. I know there's a firm out of Ottawa, APX, that develops inspection software that makes it really easy to generate a pre-fire plan out of it. I got a grant from Factory Mutual actually to buy it and put it on some iPads in my last department in Fort Saskatchewan. I don't know if they're using it, but it's such a difficult thing to get those things done when you have everything else you got to do every day, whether it's prevention stuff and training and everything.
But even if you
Uh,
have that stuff, you can't super rely on it on these commercial industrial buildings because
because they
occupancies
change.
change all the time.
Yeah,
We get calls where I work where you're going to a business name, the printout gives you a business name, and like you're actually going to the store that's like three names later, but it's never been upgraded in the computer, right? Like especially these strip malls. I don't know if this was a strip mall, or whatever, but some of those strip malls are like or even standalone buildings, the business in there changes, but like the work they're doing in there can completely change. So you think you're going to an auto parts store and you're going to a something else, right? So pre-plans are great, but they're not the Bible. You can't just be like,
no,
well, the
no,
pre-plan says. You still have to do your own size up and your own thinking when you get there.
for sure, for sure. They do say in the recommendations, uh, fire department should consider using a tick as part of the interior size up to locate fires in concealed areas. At the time of the fire, they did not have a thermal imaging camera. Now I wonder, did a mutual aid department have one maybe or something? I don't know, but I know there was a fire department in Nova Scotia that had a rekindle, and it turned they didn't have a thermal imaging camera either, and insurance actually went after the fire department for costs of the rekindle because there was a thermal imaging camera in the mutual aid area that they were part of, and they didn't ask for it. So
2002, Paul. I don't think many departments
it's
had
pretty new,
emergency
yeah,
cameras,
in
or
2002.
if they were probably on the chief's buggy,
Yeah,
because it's so important to be outside and look at the building, right?
LA City or LA County, they're giving firefighters those little mini ones, the Seek Thermal, just so everybody has something. It's like the size of your cell phone or something.
Yeah,
But no,
they're not decision making cameras though. They're like the personalized,
just sort of
more like
information.
if you get lost or something like that, or help you find a victim, maybe. Those little of course, better than nothing. But
I
they,
think our
they
recommendation is more of a time thing where, like
Right.
we said, in 2002, ticks were super expensive and not lots of people had them. Where I think today most fire departments that are doing actual interior firefighting have at least one, if not one, in every truck.
remember the size of them. Like
Oh,
the bullets were like the size of a motorcycle helmet.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they were big. Yeah.
The recommendations, I was just looking at them here. This is interesting in that SCBA they didn't cite the SCBA's for a cause to the fatality, although they did define that the department had not been maintaining their SCBA, no maintenance had been performed, flow tests, etc., and the low air warnings did not work on the SCBA properly on some of them. They were a whistle, so it was a different brand, but not that we're used to a bell or something. But anyway, no maintenance or repair work was performed at any time. So So that was maybe something about and that was a big thing. A lot of departments don't think of, especially the small ones. But hey, those SCBA's need to be performance tested annually, and you need to make sure they're worked in addition to the service checks that are done weekly or daily.
Yeah, and you got to convince your administrations that that's money worth spending.
Yep.
Just like pump testing, right, Paul?
Yeah, like that's what the chiefs need to do. Hey, I know a county very close to me that doesn't believe in pump testing. You know what? We don't need to do it. The truck's not 20 years old. So that's how it was. The Firefighters Association was paying for pump tests because they didn't want to do it because it's a recommendation, manufacturers and NFPA recommendation, but NFPA isn't the law. Although so. Let's see what else they say. Close accountability. There's no evidence it would have prevented it, but they did have a lot of people in there. Not sure if they knew who was in there.
It's hard to do
It turned out,
accountability when people show up in their own vehicles too. Like it
yes,
said that
yes,
there was yeah. So I I don't know if they check in with command and they form up companies of 4 people that show up, or if it's just like get your get your gear on and go to work. I don't know how that works, but it's hard to do that.
I think the only way to prevent that would be having a very disciplined department with entry procedures, right? So that everybody has a tag and hands it in before they actually enter, so that the officer doesn't have to waste time and airtime to say who's with them, right? That
Well, I
would have
mean
been the other option,
that's
that
one way
whoever
of
is the
fixing it.
officer radios, hey, firefighter from engine so and so, firefighter from ladder so and so is with me. Um, but other
Another
than
easy way
that,
to fix it is
yeah,
you
it's
just make
hard.
a rule that says you can't show up in your own personal vehicle. I mean, fire
But
department I was on, we had that rule. Everybody around us didn't, so they would all show up with there'd be 15 personal vehicles there. But our rule was that you had to go to the fire hall. I mean, then you came on a fire truck and you had an officer, hopefully, and you were able to be assigned appropriately.
And it does wonders for accountability.
yeah. As you guys know, I mean, I teach ICS. Accountability is probably the most important principle in the ICS system, and you have to check in. You've got to have accountability. If you don't have accountability, and we do enough of these podcasts, I actually use the podcast as an example. So many times they don't know who's on scene or who's in the building, which leads to problems and what they're doing. Right?
But how far would you go there, Paul? Is it enough to know that there's three guys on the first hand line, like just a number? Because in this case, they were looking for that firefighter that wasn't identified because they didn't know who it was. Does it
Right.
make a difference if I know who am I looking for? Not really. I know there's a firefighter missing, so their accountability was actually bang on. It's
Well,
just they didn't know the exact
it makes a little
name.
bit of a difference because if you look at there was that fire that has been discussed before, not by us, but a high-rise fire in Toronto, that a mayday was called and they were looking for a guy and they knew the guy they were looking for, and like 5 minutes into the search mayday operation, somebody radios and say, "Well, he's down here in the lobby. He's fine. Like you're looking for nobody." So I think there is a little bit of like it's good to know who you're looking for. It doesn't shouldn't make a difference in how you work or that kind of stuff, but it's good. And the other thing is in Charleston, they didn't know they were looking for 9 people, so they thought they were looking for Joe, and they found John, and they're like, "Holy shit, Joe's still missing, but we found this guy." So
Yeah.
if they didn't know who they were looking for and just found somebody, okay, we got him, we're good, and then they find out later there's 8 more people in there, right?
So
So
again,
Well,
back to entry procedures and actually having a system where I hand a tag or dog tag or something to the officer, right? Or yeah, the Velcro,
keep keep
whatever
your
whatever works, right?
and keeping your
So
companies together. That's my pet
Absolutely. I
peeve.
was
Is
just
that
gonna say.
you
I was
come
just
with
gonna say,
engine
Paul.
two or
Yeah.
you come with engine 225, you are engine 225, and I'm sorry, but unless you go as a unit, you come as a unit, you are a unit, and you have identifiers on your helmet or on your SCBA that shows me, so that when I'm a commander, I can just look and say, how come engine 23 is with engine 31? There's something's wrong here with this picture, right? And so I'm a big proponent of that. And
the problems you will run into, like bigger departments when you actually mix crews. Right? You take truck 24 and engine 5, and they go together like in the high-rise situation.
Right.
Well, now you have a mixed crew. They're both fire tag 1, but you have a mixed bag.
there's
So
also
now somebody on the outside should know who is in that crew, right?
even
You don't
the
assign a role, like you don't rename people. You're attack 1, you're attack 3, you're search 4, you're vent. You don't do that. Your job is attack, but you're still engine 23. That's the problem, is you're always engine 23. You might be assigned to RIT, roof, vent, search. I don't care what you assign them to, but it's the engine 23. And you don't call them on the radio and say, attack 1, what do you got? It's engine 23. I know it
well,
just drives me.
that's a whole other argument. I think there's pros and cons to both ways of doing that, but there's also fire departments that they don't stick together as a crew because the crew splits to do predetermined jobs, right? So one guy goes to the roof every time. 2 or 3 guys are the inside team every time. One guy's the hydrant guy every time. So I think there's different ways of skinning the cat. You just need to know your way of skinning the cat and make sure you follow your system and make sure that your system works.
But in the instance you're talking about, they're still engine 23 or truck 2
Sure.
or whatever you want to call them. They're still part of that team. They have pre-assigned jobs. Hey, by all means, go for it.
But they're not together as a group doing those jobs.
No.
That's my
still
point.
that truck. I'm getting you. Back to this, just in a bit of a wrap up here on the building. It turns out that the city reviewed the permits and everything, and they no records were found. It started in a chimney. They had made a bit of an incinerator to burn off parts, and when they're cleaning and stuff like that, they had made this incinerator, and that's where the fire started, was in this chimney, and no records were found for this chimney and incinerator they made. In fact, a grand jury indicted the owner of the machine shop, warehouse that caught fire, that claimed the lives of the firefighters, and they were both arraigned on 3 counts of criminally negligent homicide for not getting permits for what they did, and they faced up to 15 years in prison. The fire marshal says the fire started in a chimney of an oven used to burn grease from parts in a machine shop. The city building inspector's report found that the oven was installed without proper inspections or permits. They in the end they pleaded no contest, which they did not admit or deny the charges, but they ended up being sentenced. Let's see, the city fined them $42,000, and they got probation, community service, up to a year in jail. And they also had a fund. The money that they were fined went to the fire department to purchase more safety equipment like thermal imagers and stuff. There was 16 violations of federal standards in the building. So, but that's what we're walking into every day, right? I mean, that's just, unless your city's got a great inspection program, and some cities do, but in the majority, we don't know what's going on in our towns.
Just going back to what we said about the delay in dispatch, I know you're wrapping up, but I just saw it here. It said investigators said the fire smoldered undetected for hours in the walls and the ceilings. So that's, I mean, you're way behind the 8 ball then.
Yep.
So the cause was a chimney fire, basically.
Yep.
The chimney fire that spread to the material in the walls and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So
that's what chimney fires do if you don't catch them.
Otherwise, it's just a chimney fire. It's okay.
Chimneys are supposed to have fire in them.
That's right.
And it's another victim of uncoordinated vent. Is really what it came down to at the end of it, because they put 5 guys on top of the roof to start venting, and of course the fire wasn't extinguished before they started venting. So
every fire station should have a wood stove.
Absolutely.
Because if you open the vent and you open the door, what happens to the fire?
It's going good.
People don't know that.
What happens if you open the vent and open the door and then put a fan at the door.
Even more fire. That's called the
Because
fort.
that's what they did. Everybody uses that stupid fan all the time.
Yeah, well, this was when 2002 PPV was still pretty popular. I think in our neighboring province they still teach it for the areas in the adjoining structure. You're
It's
taking
still a
that off
tough.
the program, right, Zach?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Well, we just had guys that came back from that, and they're like, "Oh,
yeah,
PvP." It's
yeah.
like,
I took it too. Yeah,
no.
but
It's a
But
tough habit to break,
JIBC
right?
yeah,
still teaches
yeah,
PPV, especially in the adjoining areas, to keep the smoke out of them or
because they
something.
wanted you to create your own flow path, is what it
Because
is. Yeah,
NIST
control it.
doesn't know what they're talking about, obviously, right? They haven't done enough research. All right. Well, final thoughts, anybody? That was a good little podcast. Um, Lots of input. And sorry, I kind of get going on reading the narrative, and maybe I didn't let you jump in there, Dirk.
We don't want to be rude and interrupt you. That's
Well, I mean,
Laugh.
inappropriate for young people interrupting old people.
it's good to get the whole incident out there too, and then talk about it instead of.
Yeah.
No,
Good job, Paul.
it's another one, right, where we were talking about it at the beginning there. Separating your commercial and your apartment fires from your average bread and butter residential, 2-story residential, single-story residential houses, and the need to separate those fires and treat them differently, right? Because it seems to be a common theme when we're looking at them. Oh, they took an 1 3/4 line in there. Oh, well, it's a commercial fire. You should have brought that 2.5 in, and so on and so forth, right? So
We are creatures of habit. Thank you, everyone, for listening to another emergency traffic podcast. We appreciate your interest and hope that you find them interesting and informative, and maybe they help you. Give us a star, a like, a thumbs up on wherever you listen to our podcast. They mean a lot, and they help the algorithms pick us for new people that are searching for something to listen to. Of course, you can follow us on our social channels, such as Twitter at Podcast Traffic, our Facebook page, the Emergency Traffic Podcast. And you can email us, emergencytrafficpodcast@gmail.com. You've got a call incident you want us to cover, or you have an opinion on something we said, we'd love to share it with you.
Stay safe.
Stay safe.